giving you the insider takes and the big picture view on the Dogs. This is On the Beat, presented by Ingles with DawgNation insider Mike Griffith and Cody Chaffins.
Happy Monday evening to you, Cody Chaffins and Mike Griffith here with On the Beat. And Mike, it is a special day around here at DawgNation.
That's right, 10 years for DawgNation, and I know Brandon Adams celebrated that a little bit earlier on DawgNation Daily, and of course we appreciate BA coming to you every weekday at 10 o'clock and what he does, and post-game shows and pre-game shows with him as well, and On the Beat's been around too, and we've enjoyed doing this Monday night show with Ingles, and Cody, certainly you've been a fantastic addition. I guess you're kind of the Todd Monken of the On the Beat, right?
Came a little bit later on, yeah, but we've had some success so far, and hopefully it'll stay that way. It's just really cool that DawgNation can be around that long, and I get to be a part of this team, which I admired from afar for such a long time. A lot to get to on today's show. Mike's going to take us around the SEC, kind of tell us what the Dogs' rivals are up to. We're going to share my boots on the ground, things we saw at the first Georgia practice. They actually let the media in for a little bit, so I'll share some of the pictures I took of that. But let's start with the news that kind of broke this afternoon. Georgia in the USA Today, I don't know what it's called now, USA Today Coaches Poll is what it's been forever and ever, comes out, the preseason poll, and there the Dogs sit at number 4. Number 1, Texas. Number 2 is Ohio State. Penn State, number 3. And then Georgia, number 4. I've got something to say about this, but Mike, first reactions when you saw the Dogs sitting there at number 4.
I think it's a fair rank. I mean, I think it says a lot about Kirby Smart's ability to reload when you lose 13 guys to the NFL draft and your quarterback transfers to Miami. I mean, hey, isn't this supposed to be a reloading year? And it may be, and they might compete for another championship yet again. I mean, that just seems to be how it goes, and eager to talk about the team with you later in the show. But 9 SEC teams in the top 25, and what you don't see or hear about that is 11 in the top 27. Not surprising when you consider that, according to the betting odds, 11 of the top 25 favorites in the country are from the SEC. So when we talk about schedule strength, Cody, and we talk about the need to, no need for a 9-game schedule, this is what we're talking about. We're not making this up. And so, here it is, proof in the pudding. These are the college football coaches telling you just how deep the SEC is.
Yeah, Georgia going to play 5 of the teams in the coaches poll top 25. Now, I'll tell you what kind of struck me when I saw Georgia sitting there at 4. We have spent all offseason talking about how's Georgia going to replace, what are they going to do at quarterback? How are they going to replace all these guys on the offensive line? Is there a game wrecker on the defensive line? All the drops from last year, that can't happen again. Can these guys step up? And after all of that, all of the doubting, we've heard doubting from your buddy Paul Feinbaum, right? After all of that doubting, there's Georgia at number 4. I was actually a little bit shocked where the Dogs were actually that high from the coaches.
Well, I mean, you think about Clemson as a national title contender with 3 projected first-round picks and Cade Klubnik, and there they are at number 6. And you think about Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman and the success they had against Georgia. And, well, gosh, they're behind Georgia, too. They're at number 5. We think about Dan Lanning and his open checkbook and get whoever you want with Nike money. And there are the Ducks at number 7. Alabama, their mastery of Georgia, they're number 8. Carson Beck behind this great offensive line and an easier schedule at Miami. He's number 10. LSU. How about LSU? For all the talk we've heard about LSU, number 9. Now, these are the coaches' vote, but I think what we're really talking about, Cody, is the respect for Kirby Smart and the program that he's built. They can't tell you how many guys are on the first team. If I'm not mistaken, they didn't have a first-team guy on offense or second-team guy on offense, according to Phil Steele's preseason magazine, but they're still number 4 in the country. Even though they can't tell you who the stars are, it's like, yeah, we don't know who but it's going to be somebody, right? And that's kind of how I felt after watching Friday's practice.
Yeah, if you're a Georgia fan, does it make you feel better, or do you say, yeah, Georgia's just kind of like Alabama for so long, they just earn that respect and they're going to be up there because people have to put names up there, and it's pretty safe bet or a lot of times to put Georgia in your top 10?
Well, and I think that is a lot of it, right? And these guys still have to do it. They still have to go out there and do it. They still have to play that schedule. They still have to play at Rocky Top on September 13th, and they still have to beat Alabama. They got to show they can beat Alabama. They still got to play Texas after the Longhorns have a bye week, and they still got to play a Florida team that, still riding a 4-game win streak, and, DJ Lagway practicing. We'll get more into that later, but they still got to do it. but it says so much about the perception of the program, especially when you consider this, Cody. Do you know Vince Dooley never, in 25 years, did not have one team in the preseason top 5? And at Georgia, it's year after year after year. I think it's 8 years in a row now for Kirby with a preseason top 5 team.
Yeah, this time last year, Georgia was picked number 1 in the preseason coaches poll. Ohio State was 2nd, Oregon 3rd, Texas 4th, all a year ago. And so you're like, okay, well, that makes sense. Those teams finished kind of right there. They all had really great years. And so you're like, all right, maybe they know what they're talking about, this coaches poll. We should remind you that last year at this time, Michigan was number 8 and Florida State was number 10 in the preseason coaches poll a year ago. They went on to go 2-10 last year. So it doesn't mean everything, but usually, you can put those teams up there. And we talked about the SEC teams in there. So Texas, like you said, is number 1, Georgia 4, Alabama. Maybe it seems low because there's a lot of love for Alabama, at least recently. They're at number 8, LSU at number 9, South Carolina, Lenora Sellers, he was the top quarterback picked of all those quarterbacks talked about at SEC Media Days for that first team. They're at 13, Florida 17, Tennessee 18, Texas A&M 21, and like you talked about, Oklahoma and Missouri are the first 2 receiving votes, Auburn receiving some votes as well. So it's going to be a tough row to hoe for Georgia this year as they play 5 of those teams, but only one of those is a true road game, which is the good news, and that one is at Rocky Top. So that's kind of how we feel about this Georgia team. It was interesting because since the last time we've spoken to you, Kirby Smart's had his first press conference of this fall. We kind of got to hear a little bit about how Kirby feels about this Georgia team. I will play you his opening statement real quick, and then we'll kind of react a little bit because it seemed like a different kind of tone from Kirby. Take a listen.
Yeah, excited to be here, excited to get started again. Year 10 for us, and really pleased with the off-season work ethic of this team, the summer program. We had some outstanding testing numbers that I'm really excited about for our guys. We did our traditional combine, and then we also did a lot more non-impact cardio. We're trying to get guys in shape without putting the mileage on some of their feet. We're probably the healthiest we've been starting into a camp in terms of looking at the last 5 years, in terms of guys that were out, limited soft tissue injuries. So we are young. We've talked about that at media days, but we are hungry. We got a team that's fun to coach. When you go out to practice each day, they've been enthusiastic. They've been out there working out, like just doing all the things you ask. And
so what stuck out to me, talks about being happy, they're healthy, and they're fun to coach. These all are these positive things, which we did a whole episode about breaking down what Kirby Smart actually says at a press conference and what it actually means. But this seemed like a very positive tone from Kirby coming out of the gate.
Yeah, I think he enjoys these guys, and I think he enjoys the process. And there's a lot of fresh faces and new names and newness to the team. I mean, before it was kind of reshaping the clay every year. You had a lot of the familiar names and faces and leadership, and it was fine. I don't think it was bad, but I think when you have new players that haven't done it yet, and I haven't looked at the roster, Cody, but off the top of my head, I'm trying to think: is there anybody left from the 2021 national championship team that played a major role in that game? Even press it back to 2022 that's playing a major role with the team, and I don't think there really are that many guys, if any. And so they haven't done it yet. And this is what they came here for. They were recruited off of the 21 and 2022 team's success. They saw that and said, you know what? I want to be a part of that. They were watching college football, evaluating programs, and now it's up to them. Now they get to fill those shoes. They get to try to live up to that standard. They know what they're signing up for. They know Kirby Smart's going to be on the microphone every day, calling them out. They know they're going to be getting pushed and held accountable. They know there's going to be high expectations. They know that they've got a target on them every time they go out. And now it's their turn to fight those battles, not as reserves, but as leaders. And so I think that's the newness and the excitement that Kirby's really embracing. And I think he likes these guys just in general. We've seen the interviews with them. It's a pretty likable group of guys.
and he loves the fire. You know, we heard a lot about the fire, passion, and energy as well. And I'm sure as we go, look, it's a long little fall camp they've got going on here. They're going to spend 3 weeks all in a hotel together. There are going to be times, let them get to that first scrimmage and then hear Kirby Smart after that, because I guarantee he ain't going to be happy. He'll tell them they weren't, they were dogging it and they were tired and I didn't see them running hard. So it's not like this is going to stay that way for the whole time. Like, this was Kirby Smart just out of the gate. But I do think what you said is a really good point, because we heard it from guys like Monroe Freeling and Lawson Lucky this past offseason. These are guys who don't have rings, right? Or, they didn't really earn, if they did get one, if they were a freshman in 22. But a lot of these guys have not earned their own rings yet. And so this is not a point where Kirby Smart is having to remind them that that's the past. They know, because that's all they've known so far is not living up to expectations. It's not these guys who have been to the mountaintop who think they can just roll out of bed and they'll get back there. So I do think it's maybe a different approach right off the bat for that reason, is that you don't have a lot of those guys who are assuming, we're going to win championships, because a lot of these guys just haven't.
Yeah, maybe Oscar Delp. I think maybe he was probably a pretty key character in that. Maybe Brett Thorson, the punter. I'm trying to think. I guess Peyton Woodring is a junior, so no. But those are the primary guys, and then those guys have something to prove. I mean, Thorson coming off an injury, Delp recommitting and trying to live up to that huge expectation that he's had since he came in and was instrumental in that Ohio State Peach Bowl win. I'll never forget that when Darnell Washington went out and Delp got pressed into action. I thought Delp played amazingly well, and then the expectations went through the roof, right? We had him right there with Brock Bowers, and has not yet fulfilled that, but this year very committed to that, also leading. I mean, that's an ideal scenario. That's a guy that was a part of it, that's had to work to reach his elite level, that can lead the players around him, that understands what it takes, that's been there, and yet he's still pressing himself. That's a good scenario. I like that. Like I said, I like the chemistry of this team. It just comes down to execution now and staying healthy. I mean, a little bit of this is luck. Let's face it. Georgia had some really bad injuries at bad times last year. Trevor Etienne wasn't healthy throughout the year. When he was healthy, they beat Texas. Imagine if he was healthy every game, right? Carson Beck goes down with an injury at halftime. You wonder what he would have done against Notre Dame. You look at the defensive line depth and the issues that they had early. Tate Ratledge on the offensive line really affected the continuity. And then, of course, the drops. And we've talked about that. And Kirby talked about that recently. So there were a lot of things that went wrong. And you can say, well, Georgia was a number one. They underachieved. Well, maybe end game, but they won the SEC championship, even though they had arguably the hardest schedule in SEC history. So I think Georgia lived up to the hype. I think they lived up to their ranking. And then I think football happened. I think they had injuries. We all know the tragedy that surrounded New Orleans, a couple of them. Obviously, the horrible terrorist attack and Coach Smart with his personal loss of his father. There were factors, and they just have. They're not excuses. They're just factors. And then you tip your cap to Notre Dame. They put it together at the right time. How does it fall this year? Who do they get matched up with in the playoff? What is the health status? Where's the momentum at in the team? Where are the injuries? Where do they fall? How's the other team doing? How healthy are they? So there's so many factors now that this is a playoff sport that it's hard to really evaluate right now, because the circumstances are going to be so much different come December and the playoff field is meted out.
Yeah, I've heard from so many Georgia fans. I was at a gathering this weekend, and folks are, hey, you think they can do it? Can we do it? Can we really do it? And so I'm really like what you had to write on DawgNation.com. Where's the ceiling? The ceiling is national championship for this team, and I do think this number 4 ranking kind of says that. This is where that team can be, and that shouldn't be a question. That's where they can go. Now, the question is, because of it's such a playoff sport, can everything fall into place, like you said?
Well, Kirby Smart talked about putting the pieces of the puzzle together. When I asked him, I said, hey, Kirby, what keeps you going? After 10 years, what keeps you fired up? What keeps you? I mean, the guy's got 2 national titles, 3 SEC titles, $14 million a year. I mean, he could walk away from football and, buy his own, island somewhere and live. But no, what keeps him fired up and invested? What keeps that fury, that motivation, that passion? And he said he just likes the process of putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And it's gotten harder because as he puts these pieces together, the rules change. The transfer portal, the NIL, all the unintended consequences and distractions, and how do you manage that? And of course, Georgia had off-field issues with driving issues, well documented that they've managed. You haven't heard as many off the field headlines. I'm not saying they've been perfect, but not as prevalent as it's been in past years. This group seems more focused. And right now they're in that hotel living together, for the next 8 or 9 days, where they're eating breakfast together and, they're staying in apartments right next to each other. Kirby loves that. The old throwback fall camp, everybody gets close, the team unifies, they bond, and then they're going to come out of that tunnel on fire. They're going to run over Marshall. They're going to destroy Austin Peay. And then they're going to go up to Rocky Top, and we're going to find out just how good these guys can be.
And there's something to be said for that coming together as a team. It's something we didn't hear as much of last year as we had heard in years past. And then you watch a team like Ohio State, they win the national title, and that's what they're talking about is the brotherhood. So see,
Cody, what do you think if we have a DawgNation retreat, right? Me and
that's
you could
we
be
could all come together.
We could be roommates. Yeah, me and you'd be roommates, man. We'd be going down there, having breakfast together, cutting the show, working on stories, checking out podcasts, watching BA every day. We'd have our own DawgNation. We'd be ready to go for the season.
We'd have to go through some struggles together. I think that's what bonds a team as well. So, yeah, I don't know if we're running hills or what kind of things we would have to do, but we'd have to go through some kind of gauntlet. I do think that always brings a team together, and you better believe Kirby Smart's making it tough on those guys so they can come together, putting it through there. But I do wonder, I think it would be great team bonding. We'd all be in one place. That would be a risky proposition. We'd have one of those designated survivors, right? Who somebody have to stay back in case we need some DawgNation coverage in case something happened. But yeah, it would be a lot of fun. We played some board games. We'd all get together. I think it would be a great time.
We'd have Jay Black and we had like broken equipment. We'd have to overcome cameras not working, microphones going out. Jay Black yelling over our headsets, telling us what we need to do to get this show done on time.
This is Jay Black checking in here. The DawgNation retreat is the DawgNation cruise, and I am the designated survivor.
Oh, there you go. So the DawgNation cruise, it's not like it's a lot more fun than all of that sounds, but we are always dealing with some kind of technical difficulty. So we do work through some of those problems all together. Really good stuff, Mike. All right, we're going to take a first break. When we come back, Mike, you and I both got to stand on the sidelines at Georgia football practice. Now, some of that stuff has been shared throughout stuff you've seen. Some of this video or pictures are some stuff we haven't showed you yet. So this is going to be some good stuff we'll share on the other side of the break. We'll also take you around the SEC. It is On the Beat, presented by Ingles.
It's time to discover the convenience and time savings of contact-free pickup with Ingles Curbside. Just visit shop.ingles-markets.com or download the app. And your Ingles personal shopper gets to work with specialized training on how to select the freshest items for a pre-scheduled pickup. They'll even text you with updates. You pull up to a designated space and your personal shopper delivers your items right to your vehicle. Fresh, fast, and affordable. It's all in the bag. Ingles. Low prices. Love the savings.
Love having Ingles be a part of this. Well, every week during the season here on The Beat, we started this last year, I get a chance to be on the sideline of the Georgia games doing some filming for DawgNation. And when I'm down there, I get to catch some things that you don't normally see, maybe on the TV broadcast or even if you were in the stadium. Well, we're going to do a preseason fall camp version of this segment right now. It is our boots on the ground from fall practice. So it was Thursday afternoon in the heat that Kirby Smart got to get out there. He said he loves practicing in the heat because they're going to play in the heat. Got a lot of 3:30 kickoffs this year. Mike and I got to go in. Now, the caveat to this is a little bit different than our normal boots on the ground. It was still photography only. We could not take any video, and that's probably a good thing because we weren't recording audio of Kirby Smart just going off on the mic. That would be something we would love to show you, but we cannot. But you could just tell us about it, Mike. Kirby seemed to be happy to jump on a little bit of everybody.
Now that you mention it, I wonder if that's why we can't shoot the video.
It definitely is. There were years where we could shoot the first practice for Georgia, and then years they would ask you not to play the audio with it, and some people, it got kind of wishy-washy, and it would leak through sometimes, and I think that's why it's more the audio than anything else.
Yeah, and you know what? And I'll take that trade-off, and I'll tell you why. Because Kirby drops hints to us while he's talking, he knows the media is there. He's saying things like, the media doesn't want to write about the punt team depth chart. The punt is the most important play in college football. We need to find 2 gunners to replace the best gunners in history. And he's telling us, he's letting us know right there, hey guys, you're missing the story. We got to find 2 great gunners. This was some hidden yardage we've had over the last 2 years. And he's telling us, he's egging certain players on. He's letting us know which players that he likes that need to work harder, right? He's kind of, and he's putting guys on notice in front of the media that, hey, there's going to be an expectation. So I listen really carefully to what Kirby says, because I think it's partly an advertisement for the messages that he's trying to send. I think there's certain guys he wants to ID in front of us as guys that he's challenging, that he's keeping an eye on. So I think it's invaluable. And plus, I think the players I think they've liked it. We've written enough stories and had enough guys tell their tales about, well, you have to listen to the message and not the messaging. But now I think they understand that's kind of part of the routine, right? Coach Smart's going to yell at somebody. Your turns come. Doesn't matter who you are. Even Brock Bowers got embarrassed. Brock still tells the story about being, quote unquote, pissed off when Kirby Smart called him out because Malachi Starks covered him in who is this freshman covering the great Brock Bowers? And he said he could see Brock Bowers shaking over there on the sideline, so angry. And the next day, Brock goes off for 5 touchdown catches. So Kirby enjoys it. I think the players enjoy it. It's a big part of Georgia football.
The other part about it is, for somebody who doesn't get to go to a lot of Kirby Smart practices, which none of us really do, when you get in, you realize how it feels chaotic, because there's guys running around, Kirby's screaming the whole time. It's moving really fast. It's almost like if you try to throw me into a NASCAR, right, or a NASCAR race car, like going around a track, it's just going to feel really fast and really chaotic. I'm sure for everybody else, it kind of slows down a little bit. The one thing that stuck out to me, right in front of us, locking out these tackling dummies, were the defensive linemen. It was good to see number 52 back on the field. We did not get to see Christian Miller during spring camp. So these are all still pictures that I kind of took in a burst. So
look at this.
Almost video, right? This is as close as you're going to get. But you had to see Christian Miller out there. And Christian, one of those folks that Georgia's going to lean on this year. He is one of the vets, one of the few vets on that defensive line.
How about a shout out for Cody Chaffins? There's no video allowed, so he's going to do the still photos and give you the same imagery. Good for you, Cody. That's some hard. I like
just
that.
Squint your eyes a little bit. It'll feel
use your imagination. And yeah, I would equate that practice. I'd equate it to like the pit area during the Daytona 500 with cars roaring in and out. And better get out of the way. You don't want to get run over at this practice either. You see the size of these guys? The thing that I noticed about Christian Miller was the interaction with Elijah Griffin. Number one, they stand next to each other. They look like twins. That says a lot about how developed Elijah Griffin is. But they're fist bumping. They're talking after drills. And I'm saying that is a good position group meeting room right there. That's the leader of the room embracing the freshmen, right? That unity right there. When guys get along like that, they push each other. They're friends with one another. That's called camaraderie. And to have that at the start of fall camp, that's really important, because they're competing with one another. They're competitors too, but they're friends. There's a unification there. The brotherhood that Kirby talks about. When you've got leaders that embrace that role and lead by example, like Christian does, I think it says everything about the direction of the team.
Yeah, take a look. We get a few pictures of Elijah Griffin too. He's one of that's been out there kind of for a few days now. But Elijah Griffin, one of those guys who was out there doing his thing too. And you talked about he stood out. So the very first reactions we had from anybody was, hey, Elijah Griffin, because we'd heard so many great things. So there's Elijah Griffin right there in our fake photo burst video thing that we've got going on here. But he looks just like him, and he's a big old guy. But Kirby Smart earlier in the day had talked about Christian Miller and what the leadership, which for a guy like Elijah Griffin, he needs to bring.
There's no doubt. You need your best players to be your hardest workers. That's the ideal situation. That's what Kirby loves about Gunnar Stockton, right? Not to say that other quarterbacks didn't work hard, but certain quarterbacks have worked harder than others in past year. I think about Jake Fromm. What a great leader Jake was, right? And so I think when you've got that alpha dog That's what Christian, he's an alpha dog. You got some of those alphas over there on defense. It really sets the example for those young players. It gives them a player to follow to try to emulate. Like Brock Bowers was that alpha dog in the tight end room. Everybody wanted to keep up with Brock. Everybody wanted to try to beat Brock in the room. Everybody's trying to keep up with Christian Miller, try to beat him in those sprints, beat him in those drills, compete with him, measure up to him, because those guys are working hard and leading the way.
Here's Kirby Smart on Christian Miller.
Yeah, we need him to be a playmaker. We need him to be disruptive. We talk about havoc. We talk about quickness, speed, experience. He's our most experienced player. He has taken on this role of knowing the burden lies with him to set a standard for that group. And if we're going to be good up front and we're going to stop the run, it starts with that group. I mean, it's everybody, but it really starts with the defensive line and what kind of mentality that room has. And so far, he has approached that the right way. He did not get to go through spring because of a labral repair, and we're looking for him to have a great fall camp and push the other guys and help lead that room along with Jordan and Xavier and some of those other guys.
We hear a lot where guys say, I'm a lead by example kind of guy. And that's okay, but I would always prefer a lead by vocal kind of guy. And Christian Miller seems like the kind of guy who's going to step up and be vocal.
Well, you've got to have that. And that was another real green flag for me that I heard from Kirby Smart in the press conference. You hear red flags, you hear green flag. Green flag that the guys hold one another accountable. It's almost a lost art now, Cody, with young players. There was a time you had that alpha dog guy that was going to jump on somebody's back and say, hey, you don't worry about the coach. You're going to have to worry about me if you don't get this done. I'm going to see you after practice. We're going to have a little talk. You need those sort of guys that are going to push and hold their teammates accountable. It doesn't matter if the guys don't. I'm not worried about being liked. I'm here to lead. That's the mentality that you've got to have. And then the teammates understand, hey, this isn't personal. This alpha dog knows what I need to do for us to be a good team. This senior's telling me I ain't going out like that. This senior's telling me this is my last go round and you're going to be up to par. You're going to help us make sure that we reach our potential. When you have those vocal leaders, like you said, vocal leadership leaves, there's no illusions. There's no confusion. You're not up to par today. They're going to call you out. And the fact that they're doing that in these off-season workouts, as Kirby said, 110-degree heat index, and these guys are out there pushing themselves. Now, these are the invisible workouts. Nobody sees them. But this is truly when championships get won, when guys start holding one another accountable in those off-season workouts. And they also show you that by their focus, staying out of the headlines for the wrong reasons. Hey, there's no way this guy's going to put the speedometer over this number. He doesn't want to let his teammates down. He doesn't want to bring embarrassment. I feel like we're getting back to a lot more of that. And I think Georgia needs that, because the margin for error has shrunk. You heard that top 25, how many teams were in it? 11 of the top 27. Georgia playing 5 top 25 teams. Very little margin for error. I think the Dawgs realize that, working together to be their best.
Let's move on to our next thing that we saw at practice. You talked about some of those guys who are leaders. We've heard Kirby Smart since Zachariah Branch got on campus talk about his leadership and how his work ethic. And one of the things that, we've talked a lot about Zach Branch this offseason. He gets talked a lot about by the national media, and everybody says, he's a small guy. He's 5'10", 180 pounds. But look at the guns on him. That is one of the things that stuck out to me, because you do worry, like, a small guy, can he hold up? He's never played in the SEC. Can he hold up in the SEC? And Kirby Smart has talked about how, the Branch's dad is a personal trainer, but he just looks thick in a way, he's also got the incredible speed, right? But he in a way that can hold up against the schedule that Georgia's going to play.
Well, according to On3, he's the highest paid Georgia guy, over $1 million. I mean, Georgia didn't go out to get this guy to try or to do his best. They got this guy to perform. I mean, this guy's got to be a different. He's wearing that number 1. He's not shy about it. You put that number 1 on, Cody, there better be some results behind it. And I think about, I look at that number and I see that size. I say, well, man, that looks a little bit like Trevor Etienne with that single digit out there and that quickness. And I think about how explosive Etienne was. And my appetite is wet for Branch, because I feel like this guy's a difference maker. I think back to the G-Day game. And I know I've harped on it a little bit in my criticisms of Gunnar Stockton's G-Day performance, but they don't score in the first half. The first team offense doesn't score. If Branch doesn't come down with a 50-50 ball at the 1 yard line to set up the only touchdown, it was a 4th down throw. You might be playing it right here on the screen. This might be the throw.
This
on the
is
play.
it. If you're watching on video.
This is a tough play. He's in coverage. He's got Aguero all over him there. Not much acreage, not many places to put the feet down. He makes that play. That is a 4th down catch that set up the only first half touchdown for the first team offense in the G-Day game.
And I love the idea of him, also catching punts, catching kickoffs, and even on the short stuff, he can make a guy miss. If he's going to be strong and built like that, he's going to be able to break away from some folks. Unlike, we think about, the human joystick that, Georgia had a few years ago, and some of those smaller kind of quick guys that are special teams guys. This is a shorter guy, but not a small guy in special teams, and that was one of the things I really like to see. Another thing we got to see at practice for the first time was Elo Madozi, the transfer from Army, coming over, and here he is, number 18, outside linebacker. One of the things that stuck out to me, especially when he was standing next to number 0, Gabe Harris is out there at 6'4", 260, and just huge. Elo Madozi looked a little more like the size of, you saw him standing next to Chase Linton right there, who is a freshman coming in for Georgia, 6'4", 230, and they've got Elo Madozi at 6'4", 248, although he was only listed at 6'3" last year at Army, so that may tell you he is pushing on the 6'4". So he's not a huge guy, but he got things done on the field last year for Army, 6.5 sacks. So I do like that. He's proven himself on the football field, but it kind of reminds you a little bit of the reason that maybe he wasn't taken out of Bartram Trail High School down in St. Johns County, Florida, out of high school by Georgia. But a guy, once he proved he can play, he's going to be taken and brought into Georgia.
Well, remember, Ladd McConkey had a service academy offer too, and there wasn't a whole lot of SEC teams beating down his doors, but Kirby got that call about this kid in Chatsworth, and I'd say Elo's a little bit further along than Ladd was when he came. He had to redshirt that first year, but I'm not worried about the ball. I know how those guys train at West Point. I mean, this is a guy that comes in and immediately passes the sniff test for being able to handle the Georgia way. I mean, it's so hard, and how hard Kirby pushes these guys. You got to be mentally and physically tough. This guy can already do that. Now it's learning the skill set. It's getting the training, from the coaches and learning the different techniques. But mentally, he's there. Remember, we asked Raylan Wilson about him in the press conference. He talked about Elo's discipline. This is a guy that's not going to jump off sides. He's not going to cost you 5 yards at an inopportune time. And Kirby's seen enough on tape to know that this guy can win rush edges. This guy can plug holes. This guy's going to hold up. This guy's going to be able to handle the Georgia way right out of the gate. I have great optimism. I'm not worried about the lack of bulk. Some of the best pass rushers and best players I've seen, they weren't built like Charles Atlas. I think of Smile Munden, and this looks like a little bit bigger version of Smile. Now, remains to be seen if he can cover as well as Smile. Smile did a lot of really good things, but I'm really eager to see how this guy adds to the mix. One more weapon for Schuman on defense when you think about all those blitz packages and matchups and the havoc they're going to try to create, surprising other teams with different formations, alignments, and blitzes. He'll be a big part of that.
Yeah, and so that was the Georgia practice we will get to see. When we will see another one, who knows? We will get little tidbits as we all start to break down every frame of some of the stuff that Georgia releases. We'll start to hear things from recruits that get to visit, practice a little bit. We'll hear things from the donors who will probably get to watch at least the scrimmage or two this fall. So we'll start to get more out there. But Mike, you and I won't be able to stand on the sideline for some time. So those are our boots on the ground for now. We'll have a lot more boots on the ground as we get closer. Now, some other programs around the Southeastern Conference are a little more open with their practices. They'll let people come in and shoot a little video, at least from time to time. But people are also breaking down their films that those schools are putting out. So to get all of what's going on, especially with Georgia's big rivals in the SEC, another segment we do weekly throughout the football season, it is Mike's 30,000-foot view. So we think that 10,000 foot, that gives us a good eye on the Georgia program. 30,000 foot, we can really look out across the Southeastern Conference. Mike, I thought you had a great piece on DawgNation.com Sunday, just kind of wrapping up what everybody else is going on, because we're so wrapped up in Georgia, trying to find out, let's start with Florida. What's going on down there? DJ Lagway gets so much talk. What's going on? What's the latest with the Gators?
Well, there was a little bit of a red flag when we heard DJ might not be ready to go, and you're thinking, oh, here we go again. We just saw him at media days in Atlanta. He said he was ready to play. Well, it turned out to be a calf strain, and if you've ever had one of those are no joke. It doesn't sound like much, but it's quite debilitating. But Legway was out there nonetheless at practice. David Pollock breaking down the film saying, oh my gosh, this guy's something. Cody, I was surprised Legway came in at 247 pounds. Now, seeing him in person, we saw those tree trunk legs. We understand why he's so hard to bring down and dangerous when he scrambles. The touch passes, though, we wondered about that coming off the mysterious injury. Was it a hernia? Was it a rib? Was it a labrum? Was it a shoulder? We don't know. Billy Napier saying that he's going to be ready to go, and he was ready to go. And some footage came out of Legway from practice, throwing the ball, looking like DJ Legway. The whole key to the Florida season is DJ Legway. Without DJ Legway, you may as well take the emblem off the helmet. The Gators lose their bite. If this guy stays healthy, they can be very dangerous, but that's a very big if. He's been injury plagued the first 2 years. So the fact that he came out of the gate and had a good, strong opening week of practice, that's good news for the Florida Gators.
Yeah, he flung one down the field. It looked really, really easy throwing the ball down there. All right, how about let's go to another quarterback. The number 1 team in the nation, according to this coaches poll that came out today, Texas Longhorns, and all eyes on Arch.
Yeah, let me tell you, you doubters out there, just stop. Just quit talking right now. You seeing is believing. This guy, when he throws the football, you hear music. I mean, it's undeniable when you watch Arch Manning throw the football. I mean, this guy whistles it through the air. It's right on the money. I mean, this guy was literally born for this. This guy is truly royalty. When you think about third generation, I know Georgia fans, stop talking about him. We're tired of him. You wanted him. Kirby Smart wanted him. You have to respect and understand it's okay. Other programs have great players. Enjoy Arch Manning. He's going to be tested early, Cody. They're playing number 1 Ohio State on the road at the Shoe with 4 new starting offensive linemen. And the Buckeyes have visions of that. You just saw what Jalen Walker did and how the Georgia Bulldogs roughed him up in Austin. Okay, this is 1 year later now. Arch is bigger, stronger, wiser. We'll see if he has the weapons around him. That's my question, not Arch Manning. This guy's ready to go. I'd pick him for my NFL team right now. I just don't know if he has the supporting cast to do the sorts of things that people are expecting him to do. Yeah, he can run. They're going to be careful about it. He's got good mobility, escapability. He's got to pick those times. I think he still has to learn a little bit of that. He's still quite inexperienced. But if November comes here and Arch Manning's still standing tall, that's going to be a battle between the hedges.
Yeah, that one's on Georgia's schedule. We also look at September 13th. That's when Georgia's going to go to Rocky Top in Tennessee, trying to figure out their quarterback situation.
Yeah, trying to figure out their receiver core, too. Can you believe they're down to 5 scholarship receivers that are healthy? And Georgia fans say, oh, stop the presses. We've seen that before. Happened in 2021. Saw some injuries last year. Guys banged up. I mean, it happens when you practice that way. I don't want to say Tennessee's in trouble. It may be too early to say that, but they don't have a returning starter. Nico went to UCLA, and they can say whatever they want, but he was a guy that beat Florida and Alabama, and they made the playoffs with him under center. This guy here, I think he was about a 500 quarterback at Appalachian State. He was headed to UCLA. Now he comes to the SEC, and his first SEC test is going to be the Georgia Bulldogs. And don't you know Fran Brown, who opens with Tennessee, will be on the phone to Kirby Smart with a scouting report. I think Tennessee better get their receivers healthy. We know Tennessee has a good defense. Remember this, before we all dog Tennessee, they beat Alabama last year. They've beaten Alabama 2 out of the last 3 years. There is a lot to be said for that. So we'll see if Coach Heupel puts it together. He understands he has not beaten Georgia yet. The Dogs have won 8 in a row. If Georgia wins another one, it will match the longest streak in the series. Back in those Johnny Majors, Philip Fulmer days of the 90s when the Big Orange tormented. Now it's the Dogs' turn. They got to take care of business against Rocky Top. We'll see how healthy Tennessee is and if they can generate any kind of offense against what I think is the best defense in the SEC here at Georgia.
Mike, I didn't even think about the fact that Syracuse and Tennessee open the season. I knew they do it at Mercedes-Benz for whatever that kickoff game is called now. But really interesting that, Fran Brown, you better believe that he may stick around in Atlanta area for a few minutes just to break down the film with Kirby. That will be really interesting. Last one I want to hit today is Alabama as they try. We heard from Kalen DeBoer at SEC Media Days. He kind of broke down the race for their quarterback, and Ty Simpson seemed to be the guy, at least at that particular moment, but they've got a little bit of a quarterback battle this fall.
Yeah, quarterback derby, and right now Ty Simpson comes out. He's the lead horse. He's the guy DeBoer said if the season started today, but the season didn't start in July, and it doesn't start now. And from the sounds of it, Ryan Grubb wants more consistency. They've got a really capable backup in Austin Mack. This guy's 6'5", 230. This guy's big, and he went to Washington to play for DeBoer in this system. He was handpicked for that system. That's number 2. Big, physical, strong, capable. That might be a quick hook. There may be a reason Ty Simpson didn't come to media day. I think that said something to me. The fact that Alabama's saying, hey, there's competition here. Right. And they got a really talented freshman, too, named Keelan Russell. So the Alabama bullpen is deep. It's kind of a good news, bad news, right? Because Georgia plays Alabama, September 27th between the hedges. Hey, the Tide opens at Florida State. They're going to learn a lot about Ty Simpson there. And then they play host to Wisconsin. Luke Fickell, we remember him. Pretty good team. I don't care how down the Big Ten is once you get past top 4. Wisconsin's going to have a pulse. So Alabama's going to have a little bit more of an identity and know who they are. Georgia will only have that one road game against Tennessee to really learn about themselves. The quarterback battle, though, the fact that this is still up in the air somewhat, the way the reps are being split, we're going to find out where that's settled. Will it even be settled? Could we see 2 Alabama quarterbacks when the Tide comes here between the hedges? Would that be good news or bad news? I don't know. We know a little bit about the history there.
Yeah, Georgia never wants to see another guy come in late in the game, especially from Alabama. Dogs will have a week off before that game to prep for both guys. But why'd you have to bring up? We had such a good show going. You bring back all those memories.
Well, no, there was some good news. Now you were going to skip this, but I'm going to bring up Auburn because that road game at Auburn is one I kind of got circled right there. And we'd heard so much about the Auburn transfer quarterback Jackson Arnold. Of course, he was at Oklahoma last year, the number 3 overall recruit 2 years ago. He kind of came out misfiring a little shaky there. Not exactly what the Tigers expected coming out of the gate. So what's going to happen to Auburn? I look at Auburn as a real boom or bust program. Could they be a playoff team? Maybe. Could Hugh Freeze be fired by the end of the year? Possibly. I think this quarterback play is going to have a lot to say about that. So a slow start for Jackson Arnold and Auburn. They open the season at Baylor. Big game. They're only a 1.5-point favorite. Baylor brings back a lot of guys. It's on the road. The heat's going to be on from the offset on the Auburn Tigers. And that's a game, again, that's one of those games on the Georgia schedule. You look at it and you say, well, that's a game Georgia should win. Well, you know what? They should have won it 2 years ago. And they did, but only by a touchdown. That was the first time Carson Beck really had to fight it out, and you better believe Gunnar Stockton's going to have those kind of games. But that was a big prove-it game for Carson Beck. And remember, you had Superman back then. He dusted off the cape. Brock Bowers came up big in the 4th quarter. Brock Bowers not coming out of that tunnel. Jordan Hare's going to be just as loud. How will the Auburn Tigers be? Stay tuned. We're going to keep you posted on that quarterback battle each week on our Around the SEC segment on DawgNation.com.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze, as we learned last year, not afraid to throw that quarterback under the bus if it needs to be. Peyton Thorne from a year ago comes to mind. All right, we talked about all of those SEC teams, and you talked about the huge game coming up in Knoxville, Tennessee on September 13th. And it's a game we're taking very seriously here at DawgNation. In fact, we've got one of our DawgNation invasions planned for that day. We have got a riverboat that we will take up and down the Tennessee River just outside of Neyland Stadium to prepare. It is the ultimate tailgate. You don't want to miss it. We did it a couple of years ago. Mike was on there. So if you want to be a part of this incredible, you could see there's our folks, our DawgNation folks, on the Tennessee River in front of Neyland Stadium. We also have our live shows there. You see Mike with Kaylee Mansell doing a live pregame show right there. It is the best tailgate. DawgNation.com/tailgate where you can find your tickets. Get them now because you don't want to be left off the boat. Mike, that had to be one heck of a trip.
It was fantastic. Now, the Vol Navy were not fans of this. They threatened to blockade the Tennessee River. That really happened. They went on social. They were talking about blockading the river so that the Georgia riverboat, couldn't go up and down. Fans have a lot of fun with this. And there were a few cat calls. We heard a few things from the shoreline. Tennessee fans not real thrilled that the Vol Navy was being invaded by the DawgNation team and the Georgia fans. And of course, you remember the start to that game. Tennessee has that opening burst touchdown, and then the rest of the day day, it's all Georgia Bulldogs. I'm really looking forward to this game, and this event is so much fun. You see the ship there got on ESPN. They took a nice screenshot of that. People probably think, what in the world is going on? And people sail all the way up from Georgia for this game. Some people would if they could, believe me. So this is going to be a lot of fun. It's BA will be there, Jeff, Connor, myself, Kaylee, obviously you, Cody. This is a great time, and it's a great time to interact, meet some new people, and talk about the game. And you better believe, the Dogs are going to be sitting there 2-0. People say, oh, don't say it. Listen, we can say it. They're going to beat Marshall and Austin Peay. They're going to be 2-0, but we're still going to have some questions. What do they got to do to beat Tennessee that day? We'll figure it all out there on the ship, and then we'll go over to the stadium, and we'll watch Georgia beat Tennessee again.
Yeah, who's that coming up the river? For all the details on the other really cool part about the DawgNation invasion to Tennessee is the T-shirt that they've put out this year. I love the design. You got a little pirate design in there with the bulldog with the eye patch as well. So there you see all the details. September 13th, first 125. That's why you want to get in now and get the exclusive DawgNation at Tennessee T-shirt right there. It'll be one of those you wear around, and folks are like, where'd you get that one? Because dog people love to question other dog people's gear, and this will be one that's really unique. And isn't that crazy? It's kind of fun.
I think it's a pretty aggressive design from the AJC events team. It's like, oh my gosh, they're coming off the top rope. I mean, that is an aggressive T-shirt. I don't think I would wear that out in Knoxville after 10 o'clock at night. Yeah, because it just looks like you're ready to fight somebody wearing that shirt,
Oh, it's good stuff right there. All right, DawgNation.com/tailgate to get all of the details on that. All right, as we look forward to fall camp, we also, we got the rarity last week where Mike, you and I got to go watch practice. We get another rarity this week where we will get to hear from the Dogs coordinators, and I won't even try to explain all the naming rights have been sold to the coordinators. I tried to read the email today, and it was the so-and-so offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, also special teams. But as we get ready to hear from Mike Bobo for the first time since he just took arrow after arrow this offseason, what do you want to hear from him as he gets ready to turn to Gunnar Stockton, his guy forever and ever now?
Well, we always talk about quarterback body language. I guess with Mike Bobo, I'd say listen to the message and not the messaging. He's not necessarily the most charismatic public speaker, at least not with the media. I'm sure he's great with the recruits and boosters. But when he talks to us, I feel like he's talking about somebody at a funeral or something. Hey, have a little excitement, Mike Bobo. My goodness, look who you've coached. David Green and Matthew Stafford and Aaron Murray. And, you're part of the SEC championship team. I hope Bobo brings the energy and some charisma because I think the guy has done some good things. And last year, talking to Mark Richt, if you didn't see our show last week, Coach Rick was talking about it. He said he caught too much hell. He said, you go back and look at all those drop passes. If half of those passes are caught, one pass, one first down, one drive, you're talking about another 70 to 100 points. You're talking about a completely different third down percentage, a third down conversion rate. You're talking about much better numbers for your passing and your running game because your down and distance changes. I mean, I think Mike Bobo, more than anything else, is more a creature of perception than reality. Because when you look at the resume on paper, you'd be hard pressed to go out there and find another guy that's as accomplished as Mike Bobo. And oh, by the way, he played here. He's a Georgia Bulldog. He wears, he bleeds the red and black. He's Kirby's old buddy, Kirby's new buddy. A lot riding on Bobo. Be interesting to hear his messaging. He doesn't always say a whole lot. So that's another one. I'm going to go back and look carefully through the transcript for those red flags and green flags we talked about.
All right, the other one we'll hear from a few different guys as well, but we know we will hear from Glenn Schuman, who all the players call him the professor, because they know he knows so much. So when he gets up there, he again also can be short sometimes. What kind of things do we expect to hear from Glenn Schuman?
Well, Shu's known for wearing that gray sweatshirt. He ought to be wearing a tweed jacket because he's got a PhD in football. I mean, the guy is brilliant, obviously. I mean, he studies film. He's been working these clinics with Kirby forever. I love listening to his clinics on video. You get on YouTube, search those out. So smart, so aware. Now, we don't get the same delivery that the players do in practice, unfortunately. We get Schuman Light. We get the rated G version of Shu. But listening to him, he does answer all the questions. He's very thorough in his answers, another guy to really listen closely to. Can't wait to put that video up on our DawgNation YouTube page. That's one you're not going to want to miss when we tape that on Wednesday. We'll have a lot of questions for Shu and a lot of things he's not going to divulge. He's not going to tell you, hey, we got some real plans here. We got some surprises. He can't tell you that, but he can give you some background and help you learn a little bit more about how Georgia approaches things in that front seven. I think that front seven, Cody, ultimately, I know we put a lot on Gunnar Stockton's shoulders, but ultimately, I think the front seven is the key to a national championship team. You can overcome a lot if you can stop the run like that 2021 team did in 2022.
Totally agree. I think the Georgia defense is the reason Georgia's the number 4 team in the country in that USA Today coaches poll, which we talked about off the top of the show. And the other thing, Kirby Smart was straight up asked, how do you get Chris Cole and Justin Williams on the field with C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson? And it is, again, one of those things. Kirby's not going to say, hey, we're going to move Chris over here on third down. We're going to fake the He's not going to go in, and we're not going to hear that from Glenn Schuman. But what Kirby said last week was, hey, we've done this before, right? Like we've had really good linebackers for a long time, and we figure out ways to get guys on the field. And whether it's bringing pressure or bringing an extra guy out there, this is not their first rodeo. And I think so. We're not going to get the details from Schuman either, but that will be one of the things that will hit. Now they also Georgia says though they might have some other assistant coaches out there. Are there other assistant coaches you like to hear from most? I think Todd Hartley's usually pretty entertaining. I'm thinking of defense. A lot of those guys are new, so we haven't heard too many from too many of those guys. Are there other guys you're looking forward to talking to?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to hear more from the running backs coach. I mean, I heard they
Josh
have
Crawford,
one. I haven't seen him. Yeah, I haven't. I haven't seen him or heard. I remember what Dejon Edwards told us, right? About because he was a high school coach back then, and Dejon, he said, man, this guy's real. I want to hear this guy. And they always, if you notice this, Cody, they always have the running backs as far away from the media as any position group. So you can't really hear what's going on. You can't really see too close. You really got to have that scope out to really check them out. I think the running backs room is maybe something we haven't talked enough about. We've focused so much on the receivers because of the drops. We focus on the tight ends because of the potential. We focus on the quarterback because they're the quarterback. We focus on the offensive line because you got 4 new starters. But nobody really talks about the running back. And when I think about the great offenses, I think about having those game-breaking guys. I think about DeAndre Swift with the home run power. I think about James Cook. Think about how he changed the national championship game complexion back in 2021 after the Jalen Carter. You got to have that home run hitter. Think about how Trevor Etienne dominated Texas, and when he was missing, how Georgia wasn't the same team. Who is that home run hitter, and what impact can they have? I want to know, is Rod Robinson back? I was so excited about him last year in the spring. He was moving the pile, and I said, oh, this guy, this is a special weapon. And then he got injured. We didn't really hear more. Is he back? He was practicing the other day. He looked good. Now, the transfer from Illinois was not out there. What's the story there? Still waiting to hear a little bit more. I'm sure we will. This is a 245-pound sledgehammer you got. This is a weapon in the red zone. This is a weapon in short yardage. I want to see this guy up close. Had pretty good hands. Did a little story on that. Had a pretty good pass grade. So I'll be curious to see how these guys look and how that running back room looks, because last year they were pretty beat up. They were down to 1 scholarship running back for a while there. I'll be interested to see how healthy these guys are and how dynamic they can be.
All right, so like Mike said, as soon as those interviews are done, they will be posted on our DawgNation YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe, because that's going to be in the middle of your day. You'll be sitting at work or whatever, and you may be on your lunch break, and you'll see the notification pop up, hey, DawgNation has posted a new video, and you can be one of the first ones to get on there and see what Glenn Schuman has said, because this is not one that's going to be streamed anywhere. So you want to be at DawgNation. We will have soup to nuts, everything you want to hear from the coordinators, one of the 2 times all season we will hear from Georgia's coordinators. Really good stuff right there. Mike, it's been a fun show. We got a little taste of the season with boots on the ground and your 30,000-foot view. It feels closer than ever.
Yeah, it feels close. It feels good. It feels good right now. Seeing those guys in person, Georgia looks better in person than they do on paper. I know a lot of those position groups, there's question marks, names. I heard this guy might be good, but when you see them in person, you go, oh. Then you see another, they see, oh my goodness. Then you see, they looked so good in person. I know they don't put the pads on yet. I know we still got to see the execution, but I'll tell you what, seeing was believing. I'm very optimistic about this team.
You look at I'm having to look guys up. I'm like, who is that? And then you forget, Georgia recruits these incredible players year after year. And it's 25 deep every year that they're bringing in these dudes. So really impressive. It was great to get down there on the sideline. All right, Mike, we appreciate it. We will see you next Monday right back here on The Beat.